Hello, Yelle here. This time we are going to be taking a look at this PC right here. One of my friends needs this to be upgraded. We're going to delete it. We're going to overclock it just to see whatever we can get out of it. So hang tight. First of all, let's go through the hardware. This is a last generation PC, but it was a no compromise PC. So we have an 8th gen Core i7. It's an 8086K, which was like the anniversary edition that they did, Intel did. It boosts up to 5 gigahertz. So that was pretty much the best of the best for gaming that you could get in last generation. We have a 1080 Ti graphics card down here. This is seated down here actually because there's no room underneath this NHD 15 CPU cooler here. Other than that, there's like an RM750i power supply under here. This cannot be seen. We have a Samsung, what was it? Was it an 960 EVO? This is a 500 gigabyte M.2 NVMe drive. And there's also another one, maybe, it can be seen by the camera. The Samsung Evo one cannot be seen. But this is a Samsung OEM M.2 NVMe drive that's in here. That's a 256 gig. So this is a pretty good machine just out of the box. But we are going to try and up the performance a little bit. I do have some concerns about doing this to begin with. First of all, we're running 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM. Of course, that's nice to have 32 gigabytes, but it takes up all 4 of the DIMM slots, which might mean that the overclocking on the memory is really not that good. I'm going to try with a different memory kit. I have a 2x8 1433 megahertz kit that I'm going to try. I don't think the CPU can actually run those speeds, but I'm going to at least try. Another concern is this motherboard. It's an MSI C370M Mortar, I think it was. I actually haven't looked at this motherboard, to be honest, but I have Googled it very, very quickly, and it seems like people do have issues with the VRM temperature once you start overclocking. I could see that there's like 6 phases, maybe it's a 5+1 or something, I don't know. I don't know the power stages underneath, but I just seem to figure out that the VRMs just get kind of hot, and we're going to be overclocking this. So of course that's gonna get even worse. One of the concerns is also airflow, because you only have these vents right here to take care of all of the airflow for the whole case. This is gonna be choked quite badly. I'm told that right now it's doing 60 degrees on full load stock. So maybe there's room if we delete the CPU. We should be able to get those down to maybe 55 or something on stock, and then even better on overclocking, of course. But that's basically the machine as it is now. I want to do some benchmark runs just to show the stock performance of this machine, and then later we can compare with the overclocking results. So let's have a look at it. So we are back. I have now done a lot of testing. I ran a lot of benchmarks, and I actually tested the power consumption and stuff as well. But first, I want to direct the attention over here. I pulled out the CPU cooler and the CPU. So I told before that I was going to delete the CPU. We have it right here. And deleting actually means taking off this integrated heat spreader that's right here. And basically, I have a little tool here. So what you do is just like you put it in here, you put this over, and then you push them together with a clamp or something, and this IHS here will come loose, and I will be able to clean this all off and put some better thermal paste in it. That's what I want to do first, and then just check out the temperature differences before doing any actual overclocking on this thing. But first, I want to take a look at the actual benchmarks results that I got from this machine stock. So first off, the idle wattage, the power draw was only 45 watt. I'm expecting it to raise quite a bit because I'm going to disable power saving features. So it's going to be running full speed all the time. Also, I'm also expecting more load wattage, of course, more power draw and load. I saw 416 watts of maximum power draw. This was with both the GPU and the CPU completely loaded up. But first, I want to take a look at the temperatures. I have them right here. I'm going to put them up on the screen. We will see here that we're actually hitting 65 degrees on the package. And yeah, there's a core here that's also 65 degrees. So the 60 degrees was almost on point, but we might not get down to 55 degrees as I actually thought with delidding and changing the thermal paste. Another thing that I want to look at here is I think that the TMPIN under temperatures at the top is actually the VRM. So these are the average of all the power stages, or it has like one thermal sensor in one place, or it actually has two because it has TMPIN 5 as well as 3. So maybe both of these are VRM temperatures in different places. And 64 degrees maximum was actually, it's pretty decent. These, in general, these VRMs can handle up to 125 degrees. So that's actually okay. That was one of my big concerns. This will definitely change. They will definitely raise when we get to do some actual overclocking. So let's look at the 3D Mark Firestrike. We get 21,912 points. This is kind of where I would expect a stock system like this to be, so this is fine. If you question why I have CPU set open 3 times, this is what we do in the overclocking community. Whenever we have a score and we want to post it, we need to post proof that the memory is running this speed and the CPU is running this speed, stuff like that, just to validate that like the clock speeds of the score seems to be the same-ish, stuff like that. We also have GPU set open, and this is the first time I actually realized right here that under bus interface we see PCI X16 3.0 at 4 2.0. So the 2.0 will change to 3.0, so we will run maximum PCI Express version on that this motherboard actually supports anyway. But we're only running times 4, which is limiting us a little bit, but the score seems okay. So I don't know if this might be a problem with overclocking. I have never actually tried to run a GPU at X4. I don't actually know the impacts, but the score seems to be all right. So I think I'm gonna leave that there. If I can raise the GPU up in the X16 slot, I will do that, of course. Next up is 3D Mark Time Spy. So I like to run at least 2 different 3D Marks, and Time Spy Extreme is definitely the one that can bring a system like this to its knees, so to speak. Again, we have CPU set open, GPU set, there's not much to say. 4,342 points, that's, yeah, fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Next up, we have IDA64. So here, IDA64 has the cache and memory benchmark, but it says trial version because I don't have the full version. But if you actually go into benchmarks in the actual program and then run a memory write test, then you will get the actual number as well. So here we see some pretty slow memory. That's how I would put it. 33 gigabytes per second is not a lot. If we look at the comparisons, we have a 3950X, that's the AMD one. That's also running a dual channel RAM, but that's 3600. And of course, this is a different memory subsystem and stuff, so you can't really compare them completely, but 53 gigabytes per second on that memory speed. So there's definitely some tweaking to be done here. The memory controller can definitely do something faster. I think it's 2666 megahertz or something like that. That's the stock one on the 8086K. So next up is Cinebench R15. Not much to say here. This is like very parallel work, so it's very easy to do. The R15 is maybe not old yet, but there is an R20 version. I have that as well. But this is kind of what, whenever you talk about Cinebench, you kind of talk about R15, but it's starting to change into R20. But I know mostly R15. So we get 1378 points. If we look at the comparisons, there's not really a whole lot of relevant comparisons here, but there is on the R20. So let's move to the R20 here. We get 3,429 points. So that is right around the Ryzen 7 1700X, which is an 8-core CPU. So you get 2 more cores, 4 more threads. This is, of course, running on all cores and all threads. So I kind of expected this result, but we're still, what are we higher than? Like the 7700K, that's pretty low down, and that was a pretty high-end CPU just a few years back, actually. So this bump is really nice to see, definitely. Next one, I ran a quick benchmark on the SSD, not the Samsung OEM NVMe SSD, the 256 gig, simply because we're running Windows on this one, and that's the one that matters the most. I also think this is the fastest SSD in the system, and the numbers here are kind of what I would expect. I don't expect these to change with an overclock. It's mostly the PCI Express interface and the SSD itself that's holding stuff back here, not the CPU clock or the cache clock in the CPU or anything like that. Next up, I did a quick Geekbench. Geekbench likes basically everything. A lot of cores and single core speed. It likes RAM speed as well. So this is kind of like how fast can your system really go, kind of thing. There are never any limits. It does the work in the background, so it's doing very very common work in the background. You cannot see it, but it's rendering and doing text stuff and PDF opening and stuff like that. So this is basically trying to emulate everyday tasks. 6,600. I actually think you can download Geekbench 5 on your phone and compare to this, but I don't think you can compare 100% either. But in phones, we actually do have pretty fast hardware, and maybe definitely not as fast as this, but maybe there's a comparison to be made there. I don't know if you can directly compare, but it was just a funny thing. So we go to SuperPi. SuperPi actually calculates pi in various millions of digits. I did the 1 million on the left. So this takes only 7.633 seconds to calculate. That's kind of what I would expect. I think the CPU is actually turboing up to 5 gigahertz here because it's only running on one core. The 32 million takes about 7 minutes. That's good too. And yeah, not much to say about it. It's gonna be fun to compare with because SuperPi really likes fast memory. So just upping the memory speed is gonna help on these numbers. W prime, it uses it calculates in a little bit of a different way than Cinebench. It's still using all cores and all threads, but all of the cores have to communicate with each other and ask how far are you in this calculation. It's calculating prime numbers. Exactly how it works, I'm not sure, but we see 3.6 seconds. That's pretty good actually, but 32M is always easy and fast. The 1024 million here is 99.776 seconds. That's actually pretty damn good as well. To get under this, you definitely have to go on the HEDT platform, or well, the 9900K is going to be faster here, but not by a whole bunch. So this is pretty good. And yeah, now I'm back to Firestrike. So these are the results. I'm going to be deleting this CPU here. I will get some close-ups on it when I actually get this cap off and try to explain what I'm actually going to do with it. So let's do that. So here is the CPU. I actually already released the IHS from the CPU itself, which means we can now lift this up, and this is actually the CPU itself. I'm gonna try to, yeah, you can see, and here we have the IHS. So what we're going to do is first of all clean off this adhesive right here. And of course, there's also some of the CPU. Just getting this IHS closer to the actual die is definitely going to help with the temperature. But something that will also help is getting rid of this, because this is very stiff. And we're going to change this out for something that is very much better. We're going to use Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut is what I usually use on things like this if I'm not going liquid metal. This is going to be a system that has to be running for a long time, so I don't want to bother with like bleeding of the liquid metal. So I'm just going to use thermal paste. That also means I don't have to insulate the CPU. So let's get it cleaned off. So I have cleaned, somewhat cleaned the CPU itself here. I don't need to take everything off because it's going to get really close to the CPU itself. I also cleaned this one. Normally, what you should do is actually lap it together with some adhesive, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use the CPU socket itself to keep it all together. This is not really recommended, but I don't really have any adhesive, so I'm just gonna do it this way. So I'm gonna just use my my thermal paste, and this is going to spread pretty much on its own, but I am still going to spread it out a little bit. See, if I just put a layer like this, if it goes outside of the chip of the die, it doesn't really matter. So I'm just gonna do it like this, and then I can basically just plug this thing on top like this. I can feel the paste. If I press it down, the paste is spread, and it's kind of like, it seems to be holding on there somewhat, but this is actually enough to keep it all together, and this should improve our temperatures a lot. So let's get it installed. So this video is getting kind of long, so I have decided to do this in two parts or more parts, depending on how long this is actually going to take. I don't expect it to take a whole lot longer, actually. But a day has now passed. I've been filming and refilming and editing videos. So the day is now over. I need to go to bed. But thank you for staying this long. I hope you will join me in part 2. So see ya.